How's it going, everybody? We're going to do something a little different, okay? In this podcast, we're not going to, I don't have a song for you, but I do have a story. And this story that I'm going to tell you refers to something that is going on in our lives today, okay? So, let's begin. Take a seat, relax, get some coffee, tea, or your favorite drink, and get comfortable, okay? So, there's this large family that lives in this beautiful house in a very safe and nice community, okay? And this man buys the house across the street and sets it up to rent it out. And there's this large family, in fact, very distant cousins to his family. And he doesn't agree with their religion or lifestyle, but they see a need. And they've even gotten into arguments, but he wants to help. So he allows them to live in his house across the street. And he only charges for electricity, water, the amenities, electricity, water, and internet, okay? Not even rent. And over time, this family across the street, who it comes out that this family across the street hates the owner of these two houses. He hates them. He hates him. He hates the family. And it is this family's sole goal to destroy this host family, okay? So this family that is in this renting family, or even though they're not, or the tenant family, the father and a few of the older sons start shooting rounds into the house across the street. And the rounds wound the grandpa and one of the daughters of the leader, the man of the house. And the man of the house goes to the tenant leader and says, "Stop it, okay? Stop shooting into my house." And then goes back to his home, okay? But the tenant leader doesn't. He shoots a few more rounds. And the rounds hit the wife of the man, the leader. And the one who shot the wife killed her. The man gets out his sniper rifle and puts the crosshairs on the oldest son, okay, who shot the wife, and does a surgical strike onto the son. Kills him, okay, takes him out. So that oldest son, will never be able to hurt that family again. And it was only that son, no one else, even though the father provided the weapon and the mother provided the ammo. The son chose to pick it up and shoot it. Okay. But the leader's not going to go after those people, just the shooter. All right. And there's a few days go by, nothing happens. So there's some peaceful time. And then it starts up again. The tenant household starts firing more shots into the, what do I want to call this guy? David. I'll call him David. David's the leader of the large family that owns both houses. So David has had enough. He's holding his young daughter who's been shot. She still lives, but she's in serious condition. And he wants to destroy that house and all the tenants in there. But the homeowners association tells him, no, don't kill everybody. Your daughter's not dead. She's just hurt. She might lose a leg, but she's still alive. Okay? So they talk him out of destroying the tenant family and his house and his own property. He's still providing water, internet, electricity, and the girl survives, but they have to take her leg. Okay? And there's a few more days of peace. And then this tenant family starts firing more rounds into David's house. And more kids died this time. So David and the remaining sons inform the tenant family, we're going after these shooters, and they actually send letters. We're going after these shooters. Stay away from them. Okay? We don't want to get you all, just the people that are shooting into our house. And David and his sons go into that house and take out the shooters. And then they leave. And then the women and the tenant leader, okay, take photos of the bodies of these men, and they post it on social media. And they post the crying mothers and the crying wives and sisters of these men and the bodies. And it's the homeowners association and the neighbors they feel for these victims, right? How dare you go into this your tenant's home and delete these men? How dare you? And David's like, hey, they killed my kids. Am I not allowed to defend myself? And the homeowners association and the neighbors are like, come on, you are such a strong and capable family. You should be able to forgive, even though the homeowners association and the neighbors aren't dealing with the same the tenants. They don't have to deal with them. Their kids aren't being shot. Their daughters aren't losing legs. They haven't lost a grandpa or grandma or wife. But they're angry at David and his sons for doing surgical strikes and going after just the shooters, just the people that committed these crimes. And this continues for years. Years. The tenant household shoots into David's house, kills and wounds members of his family. And he does surgical strikes on just taking out the people that are shooting. And one day in January, this tenant house sends people, and they actually get into airplanes, arm themselves, jump out of these airplanes, and parachute into David's backyard. So now he has the enemy invading his house, his backyard, and these invaders kill 1,200 of David's family members and take 200 hostages back to their tenant house. Okay? And then the tenant house sends out, they shoot more rounds into the house. And David has finally had enough. And he says no to the homeowners association. I'm going to destroy that house. And the tenants, the men, put their own children in front of the windows. And these children, some of them really young, but the older ones, the 5 and 6 year olds, they've gone to school and they've been taught and even done school plays they dress up as soldiers, and they some of the kids dress up as and put on David's own family emblem. They put it on their hat. And in the play, the tenant's family, the soldiers, shoot and kill the characters that are playing David's family. And these kids are taught to hate David's family and to kill David's family and to kill David's friend, George. George is from a distant house, and George sends tools and money to help David protect himself. Okay? But so these kids are being told to stand in front of the window and to have their fathers shoot at David and his family. And unfortunately, the bullets of David and his sons hit the kids as they're aiming for the enemy. And it tears apart David's sons and David, having seen this. But they need to destroy the enemy. And when the enemy places these so-called innocent kids as shields, it's like, we need to destroy the enemy, and the enemy places their own children in front of us, but the enemy needs to be destroyed. And even though it's terrible, war is terrible. To protect David's family, he does it. He gives the order to fire. And these kids die. And then the mothers take photos of the bodies of their own babies, their own kids, their own husbands. And then they post it on social media. And this outrages the homeowners association and the neighbors and the homeowners association is threatening to do something and to arrest David and his sons for what they did, even though David has evidence, and that the homeowner association and the neighbors have seen the war going on. They saw what happened on that January day. All right, but they see the babies, and their heart goes out to those babies. And the fact that as soon as David warns, like, hey, we're going after these people, get out of the way, the homeowners association and the neighbors send in photographers and news reporters, and they set their cameras up on these targets that shot at David and his family, and who have been warned, like, hey, we're going after them, have the family and the innocent ones stay away from them. And then suddenly these targets are taken out, but they're taken out in front of the camera that these news reporters have been given time to set up and perfect the shot and all that. It's like even members of George's family, David's friend, members of his family have started to yell and respond to these posts of dead babies. And it's like, David should be arrested. David should be killed for killing these babies. George, why are you friends with this evil man and his family? It's like, you're as bad, if you're supporting this, you're as bad, if not worse. Even though David is just trying to protect his family. So David goes in to his own house across the street and is now clearing out every single room and taking out every one of the tenant's family who poses a threat. If a young boy, if a young girl, if a wife, if an elderly man or woman picks up a weapon, they are taken out. And David's family, David's sons, they're no longer listening to the homeowners association. They're no longer listening to even George's family that are yelling at them to stop this is genocide. When these people that are calling what David and his sons are doing genocide haven't even read the history of David's parents and his uncles and grandparents that were actually put through genocide. In World War II, what the German soldiers, because I can't really say what they're actually called, when they put his grandparents through the gas chambers, and his aunts and his uncles, and they put him in the gas chambers, turned on the gas. His grandparents died. Then they took the grandparents out and then filled it with his aunts and uncles, and then killed them, and then took them out, and then did the same thing over and over and over and over again, killing millions of his ancestors. That was genocide. But what he's doing now to the Tennant family, this is war. But the neighbors and the homeowners association don't really know what war is. And when they hear of war, they only see it from a distance. and from the stories that their soldiers tell, but that is a rare occasion. Because these soldiers that have gone to war, they don't want their loved ones to even imagine what they have seen. Because these soldiers, especially from George's family and George's friends, Charlie and Frederick, okay, their allies that went to war to fight against, turns out the Tennant family, it was their cousins that George and Frederick and Charlie were fighting to protect all their families. George, Frederick, and Charlie didn't want to tell their stories to what really happened at war to their family because it was so terrible. And what they saw, they don't want their loved ones to see or to even imagine. The movies that they show just scratch the surface. So the families really know nothing of war. And when the Tennant family posts the dead babies and the bodies of their soldiers, they use that as a weapon of propaganda, and they post it and they release it and reveal it to the families of Charlie, Frederick, and George. And the people that see it begin to hate David's family for doing that. And they don't realize that David is doing it to protect his family. He's tried to communicate with the Tennant family and the Tennant family leaders. He's tried to, it's like, we'll build you more, we'll build more, we'll expand the house. Let's try to make a deal, just stop shooting at us. But the Tennant family doesn't want the help. They don't want the expansion. They want David's family to cease to exist. And they are using their children and the photos they have taken of their children's bodies as a weapon to create hate for David's family from their very allies. From George's family, Charlie's family, and Frederick's family. They're all allies, but the Tennant family is using the photos as propaganda and twisting the minds of these young family members of David, George, Frank, Charlie, and Frederick. All right? It's getting to the point where David has to finish the job despite his allies, family members, and the homeowners association and his neighbors threatening him. Because what is more important, what is most important to David is his family. So he finishes the job. He goes back into the Tennant household and takes out all the enemy. And then he repairs the house, and he has some of his own family. He puts, instead of renting it out for free, he has his sons and his their wives and his daughters and their husbands, they go into that house. And he lets his God and his faith in his God he lets his will be done. And George, there are members of David's family that there are different religions in each household. In David's family, there are Jews, Christians, and Muslims. In George's family, some don't believe in anything. There are some Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and then some other religions. Same thing with Charlie and Frank's and Charlie's. But in the majority, there are these three religions: the Muslim, Jews, and Christians. They all believe in the same, or supposedly same God. All right, and they believe that even through the sad times, God has a plan. Okay, and that He has a will. Okay, and they trust in Him for that. And some of these people that say they're Christian are pissed off that David did what he did. Even though for these Christians, they, according to their Bible, the God that they believe in has chosen David as his chosen person, David and his family. And even if David believes in only half of the Bible, these Christians from George's house, Frank's house, and Charlie's house, they read in the Bible that David's family is a chosen family, and they're still going against David. And a lot of these Christians from George's, Frank's, and Charlie's house, they say we need to support David. We might not agree with everything that he's doing. We might not know the whole story. We need to know a whole lot more. And it turns out he's just defending himself. Okay. But some of these Christians are the babies. And these Christians never saw war. The soldiers that did see war never told these people what it was like. And they never told that they never told of the time when George's son had to shoot a young boy who picked up a RPG and aimed it at his fellow soldiers' Humvee. And to protect those soldiers, he had to shoot that boy who was going to shoot the RPG into his fellow soldier's Humvee. He didn't want to shoot the boy, but he had to protect his fellow soldiers. But he never told that story to Amanda. And Amanda is pissed off because she sees these poor dead babies and these poor women crying about their kids, their babies. So Amanda's pissed off and is yelling at David when Josh, she doesn't even know that Josh had to take the shot and kill a young boy to protect his fellow soldiers. He never wants to tell her that because she's innocent. Josh wants to keep the war as far away as he can. So Amanda doesn't know anything about war. And she loves babies. She loves she just sees the pain. And this pain and destruction is new to her. She's never seen it before. And sees David's family as the cause of that pain and suffering. If not by now, you know what I'm talking about. David's family is Israel. George's family is the United States. Frank and Charlie are like Europe and the allies of the so-called allies of Israel and America, and England, Charlie, and all that. And I hear these people, they're doing podcasts, shows, and they don't know what they're talking about. They see the poor babies that were used as shields by Hamas. And then the bodies of these babies used as a propaganda weapon against the West and Israel's so-called allies. And these so-called Christians who have never really seen or been in war, they're getting pissed off at Israel, who's been taking rockets and attacks from Hamas for years, for decades. And the Homeowners Association, NATO, or the UN saying, no, you can't retaliate. And you can only do strategic strikes only at the source of those rockets. Turns out the source is a hospital. And that hospital is a children's hospital with current children patients in there. And if the Israelis don't react right now, those rockets, launchers, and those terrorists are going to be able to leave. They know where they are right now, so they need to strike right now. And in doing so, children die, along with the terrorists and the weapon used to fire those rockets. In war, there is collateral damage. What is collateral damage? When innocent people, so-called innocent people, die. In war, in a normal war, the two sides are clearly identifiable due to uniforms, and each side knows what the enemy looks like. They know the rank structure. They know the difference between the officers and the enlisted, the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers. And they know what the appearance of the general civilian population, what they look like. And it is against the rules of war for a soldier to dress as a civilian and to attack the other side. And if a soldier who is dressed as a civilian is caught, they're immediately put to death. If not as a spy or as a I think it's as a spy or an assassin. They are put up in front of a firing squad and they are shot. That's why in a time of war, in 99.9% of the cases, the soldiers wear and fight in a uniform. But that doesn't happen in modern day war. Okay, in most cases, or at least in the wars that the U.S. and its allies, the enemy dresses in the civilian attire. So unfortunately, there have been collateral damage of innocence. My question is, especially in the case of Israel and its war against Hamas and Gaza, why are there babies even in Gaza? Because you would think, if I was a Muslim in Gaza and I hated Israel, I love my family, I love my kids, I would take my kids, I would take my wife out of the war zone, and if that means Egypt or Jordan, fine. Make them safe, or as safe as I can make them, and then go back and fight. So it would be me and my oldest sons that are going back and fighting. But no. The families of Gaza are still there, and the women of Gaza are putting their own children through these schools that are teaching them to hate Israel and to hate America. And in their plays, they kill Jews and they kill Americans as their children plays. So they are teaching them at a young age to kill Israelis and Americans. And they also teach in the Muslim religion that in jihad, if you die in jihad and you are a martyr for your faith, you will automatically go into heaven. So these mothers that are allowing their babies to be shields for Hamas, they believe that the babies will go to heaven because the babies are martyrs. And then they allow photos of themselves crying and amongst the bodies of their dead babies. The photos are being taken to be posted. These photos are being used as a weapon, a propaganda weapon, and it's working. Reminds me of Vietnam and how our soldiers were called baby killers because the Russians and the Viet Cong took photos of the dead babies and sent it out to news agencies who put it in their newspapers and news shows, showed them pictures of war with collateral damage, and had all these hippies and college students got pissed off because not knowing a thing of war or what our soldiers and the allies that fought with us in Vietnam, they don't know a thing about what's going on except for what the news tells them. And when the enemy uses the country's own news media as their propaganda weapon, that is really the only way how America and how its allies can be beaten. We lost the Vietnam War because the Viet Cong and the Russians used our very own news media as their propaganda weapon. And now the Muslims of all these nations who hate and want to destroy Israel are doing the same thing. They're allowing their sons, their daughters, their babies to be martyrs and to be killed in combat, to be collateral damage. Then they take these photos and post them on social media, and they are using the propaganda, this propaganda, and the Western news media as their weapon. And then they have these so-called innocent and ignorant podcasters, some of them even Christian, who are so ignorant to war. They know nothing of war and the chaos and the pain, war that comes with war. They just see dead babies, dead bodies, and the mothers, and the pain, and that tears their heart apart. But instead of blaming the people that put those babies in front of them, they're blaming Israel for aiming toward Hamas and unfortunately taking out the babies with Hamas. The Hamas bodies, the bodies of the men, the terrorists, have been removed from these photos. So all that is left are the bodies of the babies, the kids. The remnants of the rocket launchers have been removed, or the focus and the photos have been taken to leave out the rocket launchers, or what was left of the rocket launchers. And the news media, that is fine. I mean, like you want to use this, the news media as a propaganda, as long as we get paid. Show us the money and we'll be your weapon. So you got Hamas, either Hamas paying the news media, or the news media is getting, like whenever you watch most YouTube or the ad revenue. These news sources are getting the ad revenue from every time their little post is watched. So they're getting money from this. Hamas and the terrorists are getting, they're getting support from these ignorant Americans, ignorant Westerners, who are too ignorant and too gullible to know what is really going on. And they are creating like these words like Zion propaganda. I saw this one clip of a Christian lady's podcast, and she's doing commentary of another news. It was on Piers Morgan's. Is it Piers Morgan? Uncensored broadcast in anyway, his show that has I think there's an officer, and a black guy who was formerly a police officer, who was also a Christian. Great, I forget his name. Something Tate, Officer Tate. Anyway, not Andrew Tate. But anyway, he's having a debate with another guy who is, and she's commenting on this clip. And the other guy is bringing up all the babies that were killed by the IDF. And this former police officer, is commenting back. It's like, you know that the babies were used as shields, and they're used as a propaganda weapon by Hamas. And he goes on, and he's giving this guy that he's debating and his viewers, including this Christian lady, so-called Christian lady, who's usually really good. She has a toot, and she curses a lot. And it's like, bitch, anyway, for being a so-called Christian, she has a potty mouth, to put it in the most PG way. And she usually goes against or comments about liberal. She's usually really good. And now she's doing this. And it's like, come on. Inform yourself, do the research. And she's ignorant of war. This officer guy is more informed. He has seen stuff as a police officer that he would never tell his own family, let alone his followers. And what he does tell them only scratches the surface. So you have these ignorant people who know nothing of war except for what movies tell them, and they're not willing to do the research necessary to understand just a little bit of what is really going on. So as this officer guy is giving details, facts, the so-called Christian girl stops it as this officer guy is giving out facts, and she says, "Oh, shut up with the propaganda. Zionist propaganda." She has swallowed hook, line, and sinker the Muslim propaganda, the terrorist propaganda, and is too ignorant and blind to see what she is doing. And I'm not going to say anything about her salvation or her relationship with God, because that is between her and God. But I challenge you, my fellow Christians, to inform yourself of something that you care deeply about before you go out onto a platform where millions of people, where you might have millions, if not hundreds of thousands of people that support you and who take your word and will treat it as fact. I'll even tell you not to take what I'm saying as fact. Do your own research. Take what I tell you with a grain of salt. Do your own research and make your own opinion. But don't blindly take podcasters, commentators' word as truth with no further information. There's this one guy, he has a show called Louder with Crowder, okay? Look it up. Another Christian, but he does, and his staff does research, and then he posts the research, the source of the research, where he got it. So you, the viewer, can also do research using the source that he provided, and you can find other sources, okay? Shows like Louder with Crowder, we need more of those. And there are some things I don't like about Louder with Crowder. The stupid fake call-ins and all that stuff, kind of stupid. But he was originally, he was a comedian. It's a comedy show, or it's supposed to. But it's become more of a news source, because Crowder has more reliable sources and shares the truth far more than any news source media, especially CNN. He will take what CNN tells you and then prove them wrong and call out their lies. The only news source that I actually go to, or when I'm watching the news, it's Newsmax and a certain shows on Fox. But I have to, even with Newsmax, I have to take what they say and then do my own research if the topic is important enough to do the research. I never listen to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, no. Because when they're speaking, they're 99.9% of the time lying. So, it's like, we need to stop being gullible. We need to stop accepting lies. And especially you fellow Christians, okay? Especially you fellow podcasters and commentators. We need to check our sources. We need to verify what we are talking about. And if you do not know, and if you cannot, you either cannot verify or cannot spend the time that it would take to do the work necessary to verify all your resources. Inform your viewers about that. Okay? This is from my point of view. This is what I've seen. This is the research that I have done. Okay? And this is my point of view from, if this lady was commentating on the former officers, Chris Morgan and the other guy on the debate. She was misinformed. She is not allowing both sides to share their info, and she is cutting off this officer guy and calling the little of what he actually said Zionist propaganda, and called them a bunch of stupid names. Well, she's saying that to a fellow Christian. This officer guy is a Christian. And I am fine with Christians debating on. We have enough problems in our own Christian faith that we debate on. And then to add that to her ignorance and the fact that she's been manipulated into believing the Muslim propaganda, it's just, what else can you do except to actually call her out? I actually posted pretty much what I'm telling you, and I left comments, but who cares about my comments? It's like, the modern day, we have more freedom, we have technologies to a point that, and it's readily available to share information and to share misleading information, and to lie, and to share that lie with enough truth to have even so-called Christians believe what this liar is trying to share. And these gullible Christians aren't willing to verify and look into this info. To them, it's just information. It's a photo of I'm not going to describe the photos that I have seen of these babies and crying moms. but I do understand the pain and the anger that I can just tell you what's coming from me. Okay, I see the photos of the dead babies and the moms who are acting, because they're the ones that allowed the babies to be taken and to be used as collateral damage, propaganda, because to them, their baby's in heaven. Their baby is a martyr for Islam, for Allah. And in some cases, I think they even get they get reimbursed. They get money for a child, for a baby or child, or if their husband or son died, they get money, which is not uncommon for most military countries. But they reimburse. Okay, if the soldier dies, the family gets a certain amount of money, or life insurance or something like that. But in the American military, we do not use our babies and children as a propaganda weapon, or their deaths as propaganda, or to be used as propaganda. But from a tactical point of view, the Hamas commander, the terrorist commander, is very wise and is very smart from the point of view of war, and not the type of war that America or Israel uses. But it's fine if they're terrorists, Muslim extremists. They will use their own Muslim extremists as weapons, as suicide bombers, okay? To dress and act normal, to go into a group of people, preferably not of your own kind, okay? If you're a Sunni, you would send the suicide to a Shia, and the Shia to Sunni. Those are the two types of Muslim sects, I guess, or anyway, groups. Those are the two groups of Islam. And it's a brutal tactic, but I see the benefits from it. And I see that point of view from that military or that terrorist commander. Because the West and the Christians don't fight in that area. They don't fight like that. They fight soldier to soldier. And these soldiers are adults. They don't send their children to fight because the natural, from the Western point of view, you don't kill kids. You kill the enemy soldier who is armed just like you are, and you just get them first, and you get more of them in a combat sense, or in combat. But when you send a child to shoot a RPG toward a group of soldiers, and one of those soldiers sees that child aiming that RPG, the first instinct of that soldier is to hesitate. It's like, you're a kid. I don't want to shoot a kid. And hopefully he doesn't hesitate long enough for that kid to fire that RPG, killing his fellow soldiers. But that has happened. Because it's a child. You don't shoot kids. But I hate to say, fortunately, but I'd rather have that soldier shoot that kid and save the lives of my country's soldiers. Because to tell you the truth, the soldiers of my military are more important to me than that kid. I'm sorry, but when that kid picked up a weapon, his life was forfeited. When that kid's parents gave him that weapon for that kid to shoot at my soldiers, those parents are their life is forfeited. At least with an adult terrorist, there is some honor fighting for what you believe in, and even a little bit of respect. The fact that you're willing, as an adult man, you're fighting for what you believe is right. I can disagree with what you feel is right, or what that terrorist feels what is right, but I attempted to join the military 3 times. I was injured while I was in ROTC, and after I healed from that injury, I attempted to join the Air Force, and then was disqualified because of the injury, and then I got, it was an eye injury, I got LASIK, thought I'd fixed everything, tried to enlist in the Army, got a Special Forces package, life was good, and then I got disqualified from that. But my preparation, I did some psychological preparation, and because I wanted to prepare myself for the possibility of going into combat. And I imagined firing my weapon with a scope, and with some scopes, the enemy is right there. Would I be able to shoot the enemy? The grown man who's carrying a gun, firing it at me and my fellow soldiers. Would I be able to pull the trigger? And having not been there, okay, I would like to say yes, especially if they're shooting at my fellow soldiers. You don't shoot at my friends, you don't shoot at my family, and if you do, I will delete you. And that goes even more if we were in a combat situation. Or would I shoot a kid to protect myself and my fellow soldiers? I want to say yes, I would, to protect my fellow soldiers. If it was just me, I would probably yell at the kid, try to stop the kid, get out of there. I don't know. But if it was just me, I might hesitate a little longer to stop the kid. But if my fellow soldiers were in danger, sorry kid, you're gone. You don't endanger my friends, you don't endanger my family. And I can just imagine the IDF soldiers, the pilots. I can only imagine that they feel the same way. And you got to remember that the IDF soldiers are Jewish, they're Muslim, they're Christian, or atheists, okay? But they are Israeli. And they will fight to protect Israel. Okay? Their brother in arms, their best friend, their fire team, their squad, their platoon, their company, their battalion, their regiment, that's theirs to protect, and their country. And I don't care if my best friend's Muslim or Jewish. He's my best friend. He's my Muslim. He's my Jew. All right? And I will protect him just like I'm his Christian. And they will protect me, and I will protect them. That is what the IDF are thinking. Okay? This guy might wear a weird cap. And when we're not in combat, he might pray 3 to 5 times a day. Okay? And he might even have the same religion as our enemy. But he will not only fight for me, he will also die for me. That is what the IDF is. That is what the American military is. That is what I would like to think the UK military is, the Canadian military, the Australian and European countries' military is. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian. If you stand beside me to fight our enemy, you are my brother, you are my sister. All right? I don't care the color of your skin. I don't care the God you... There's only one God, God of the Bible. But I don't care what religion you're in. If you fight with me, you are mine. You are mine to protect. And I protect you, you protect me. That is what the IDF believes. And just like the story I told you, Israel is done playing around. Israel is done taking shots and rockets into their country and getting their civilians killed just because this group wants to see Israel destroyed. If Israel laid down their arms, they would be destroyed. If Hamas laid down their arms, there would be peace. I'll say that again. If Israel laid down their arms, put their guns down, surrendered, every single Israeli would be killed. Doesn't matter if they're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. If they're Israeli, they would be killed. But if Hamas put their weapons down, Israel would have peace. And the ignorant people that are just see dead babies aren't willing to step back and look at the big picture. And that's what they would need to do. I'm not saying to... Many of these people they're still innocent in the ways of war. They have not done the research that I have done. They have not seen war. And what I have experienced and what I have seen has just scratched the surface. The soldiers and military personnel that I have talked to for my research, the stories that they have told is just scratching the surface of what they've really seen. And to tell you the truth, I don't want them to have to relive what they have already gone through just for me to hear the story. There's enough video out there I can do my own research and see. That's enough. As long as that source is not edited and not used as propaganda, it's just out there to show a little glimpse of what is going on. Israel needs to finish the job. Israel has every right to defend itself. And if the people of Gaza didn't vote Hamas into power, they wouldn't be going through this. If the people of Gaza if they started an underground resistance, like the French did in World War II, the World War II resistance, they resisted the German soldiers, the Nazis. I hope I don't get just for saying that. Anyway, I'm just going to say it. YouTube, deal with it. In World War II, multiple countries that were taken over by the Nazis started to resist, and they built a resistance. And guess what? There were certain places and certain Nazi commanders that if a Nazi soldier was killed by the resistance, the Nazis would take 10 or more civilians of that country and kill them for every single one of the Nazi soldiers that were killed by the resistance. Did that stop the resistance? No, it didn't. It just brought more recruits for that resistance to fight against the Nazis. That was the greatest generation. Our American heroes of that generation, each and every GI that stood his ground, that did his job, that fought in World War II, they were all heroes. And then when they came back from war and built America, we would not be seeing what we see now. We would not have the freedoms we have now if it wasn't for that generation. We Americans, with the West, needs to step back and look at the big picture. And we need to use what the greatest generation, what our grandfathers and grandparents, or great-grandfathers and great-grandparents did. They led with example. We need to take and follow their example. My grandpa wouldn't just take whatever the media says. He would do his own research. And he would call out the liars. And he would rebuke the people that easily accepted what they were told, the lies that they were told. They accepted it as truth. He would rebuke them and call them out, shame them. I'm going to do the same thing. This Christian girl that on the podcast, who is ignorant to reality and is just following one of her favorite podcasters. I like him, so I'm going to take what he says, and the facts that the officer shares. Oh, that's just Zionist propaganda. She is blind, and although she does have a lot of videos going regarding liberals and Democrats, she is right on because she's done research on those. She is more prepared for those, and she has her sources of wisdom for those topics are more reliable. But when it comes to the war in Gaza and the IDF and what is really going on in there, she has taken the side of the liars and the misinformed. And she's not willing to take both sides, do the research necessary, and do the work necessary to find out that what this officer, what this officer guy is in fact not propaganda, not Zionist propaganda, but in fact the truth, and he's coming from the viewpoint of and the background of a police officer, an honorable police officer, who has seen things that this girl would never even dream of, and who this officer would never want to tell. The ride-alongs that I've went on, I've seen things, I've heard things that I would not want to tell my family. I've shared most, but not all. As a 14-year-old police explorer, I grew up fast. Just imagine being a police officer and every single call you go on is someone's worst day of their lives. And that's every single call. 90% of the calls you go on. And it's worse for soldiers in a combat zone. But these ignorant, dare I say, Christian commentators and YouTubers are so ignorant and gullible to take whatever these people who they look up to and who so supposedly are doing the research that they should be doing, but they say the things, and then when they're rebuked by men like this officer with actual wisdom, with actual facts, they just say, oh, that's just Zionist propaganda. Oh, you might be right, I'll give you that one. But over here, like the guy said, if you support Israel and the IDF, you cannot be pro-life. And if you think about it, and think about what he just said, let me break it down for you, okay? If you are pro-life, as in you are against abortion, the murder of innocent babies, especially while they're in the mom's, the womb, okay? If you are against abortion, you have to be against Israel and the IDF. And that's a bullshit. I can be pro-life and identify the murder of innocent babies, especially the ones that are in the womb, and identify the terrorists hiding behind the babies that they put up, and they put up as shields against Israel, with the hopes to torment the person that releases that missile, or fires that missile, releases that bomb, fires that weapon, and in hopes of, I don't want to kill the kids. When in fact, in war, you know the enemy, you know that they're evil, especially Muslim extremists, terrorists. You know, you see the evil that they are willing to commit every day. And you need to destroy that. And by destroying that evil, innocent babies will be killed. And you are down to the point, well, I'd rather have it be their innocent babies than my innocent babies. And yes, that is hard to say, because whether they're your innocent babies or their innocent babies, they are innocent babies. But the IDF didn't place those babies there. The terrorists did. The IDF didn't place that rocket launcher or missile launcher in that school or hospital. The terrorists did. So you YouTubers, commentators, Christians, whoever you are, stop siding and believing on the bullshit and propaganda that these Muslim extremists and terrorists are giving you. Stop eating it like it would be your favorite ice cream and start seeing it the way it is. It's evil. And we need to destroy evil. And know that by destroying evil, there will be collateral damage. And we are at the point, we are beyond the point, that it is better to have their innocents die, then our innocents die. And that's sad to say, because innocence is innocence. The baby didn't choose to have that mother that would rather have her kid be used as a martyr or for martyrdom, instead of living a good and complete life, a safe life. We need to destroy evil. We need to identify what evil is and destroy it. And if we do that through prayer or through missiles, it needs to get done. Let's go in and end it there. This one was hard to do, but it needed to be done. And if you're still listening, thank you. If you're still listening and totally disagree with what I said, as in you don't agree with Israel, you don't agree with, that's fine. I thank you for listening. What I do hope is that I raised a few questions, and perhaps you will work on answering those questions. You'll actually step back and look at the big picture and do the research necessary to answer those questions. And yeah, it might hurt. You will not like what you see. You will see death and destruction and evil. And hopefully you will find out why what the IDF is doing is so very important, and why they need to wipe out Hamas and ISIS. And yeah, let's go ahead and end it there. Thank you for listening. Consider subscribing. If you want me to do this podcast in my office, or in an office that I don't have yet, consider subscribing to my Bandcamp. Links will be below. It's $3 a month. You get access to almost 3,000 of my songs, and that would definitely help me out a lot. So, thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.